Welcome back to my
So,
channel, y'all. Thank you guys for tuning in. I got a very special guest,
I don't
Jobob.
know about that.
How are you
I
doing?
don't know about that. I don't know about special guest. That's
Very,
not
yeah.
special.
Well, for those of you that don't know, you're the host of the Daily Caller on
Mhm.
YouTube. And so I think this is really cool that, obviously for me, because you're part of the Islander community. Obviously, we met couple
Yeah,
weeks
dude.
ago over at the event, Western Regional Conference.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, yeah, talk a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah, dude. Well, first things first that I generally have to say
Yeah.
when doing anything is yes, Jobob is legally on my birth certificate. One grandpa was Joe, the other one was Bob. So my parents YOLO'd and decided to give the brown guy a hillbilly Alabama backwoods name. But I
Yeah.
also I also feel like that's like not super uncommon in like the Islander community, like combining names. Like I knew a girl named Earl Lynn in high school. It was just her dad's name and her mom's name, just combined them together. And I don't, yeah. So I don't know if that's like I don't know. My parents just decided to do that. So, anyways, that's the name situation. So when people are like Joe Bob, what the heck? Yeah, that's where that comes from. I don't know. I don't know what I do, honestly. I just kind of make jokes about the news and I don't know, try to move the needle just a little bit to the side of more freedom, less government involvement in stuff.
So let me ask you this, like how did you even get to like where you are? Like obviously now you're doing all this in the political field, but yeah, tell us a little
Yeah,
bit
dude.
about that, like where you started.
So I um I got into politics on accident.
Yeah.
I wanted to do video stuff. Like I feel like I'm like a decently creative person and I wanted to do video work and I was like really into like shooting commercials and stuff and I got a job or a little gig working or doing a commercial for a family friend who was running for city council and I gave her the commercial and she was like, "Well, what do I do with this?" And I was like, I don't know. She's like, I don't have a TV budget. So, like, what do I do with this? And this was right when like Facebook and Google ads was starting to work in. And so I figured out how to do Facebook and Google ads for political candidates. And it just kind of grew from there. So, like, that was, I don't know, 10 years ago. Jeez.
10
That
years
makes me
ago. Wow.
that makes me feel old. Maybe not quite 10 years ago. But that kind of one thing led to another. Then her friend who was running for something else used me, and then something else, and before I knew it, I was running a gubernatorial campaign. So I ran a guy against Gavin Newsom in California in 2018. And so that's I was in the political world, but not in the commentating world. Like I was,
Right.
trying to win elections and get candidates into office. And so from there, and that was pretty good. Like I got to do a couple cool things in that world, but that world is very different from the commentating world. And about like a year and a half ago, I kind of was like, not reached the peak of political consulting in the race sort of stuff in the races, but was kind of like tapped out of just all of that, like dealing with candidates,
Right.
uh, you know, voters,
Right.
and everything that goes with that. And it's a very very high burnout job. You work really really like obsessively hard for like
Yeah.
3 months, and it's 20-hour days, 7 days a week until the election happens. And so I was a little bit burnt out on that, but I also kind of like thought just in taking in media that there's for the pro freedom conservative whatever you want to call it side, there was not a ton of levity. Like everybody's super
Mhm.
serious all the time and doom and gloom, which is fine. I get that. There's clearly a market for that. But I also thought like, hey, there's another way to reach people that are like
Right.
not engaged. And so I sat down with my wife and was like, hey, I'm going to take a shot at this like commentating thing. I started just producing videos because I had a pretty extensive video background and was like, all right, I'm going to go full all in here, produce some videos. I was lucky enough to get picked up with the Daily Caller and started doing a show with them. Then they, for some reason, let me start hosting a live show on all their platforms every day, which is, again, this is crazy to me, by the way. Like that,
Yeah.
there's no way that I should be doing any of this. And then from there, got invited to go do a Turning Point show, and then got offered to be a contributor over there, which again, it blows my mind how,
And how
it,
long ago was that you got invited to
that
the
was
Turning
probably
Point?
it's probably about a year ago. It's probably about a year
Yeah.
ago,
Wow.
like soon. And yeah, I went there. They were doing a TPUSA live show at the time. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a couch show,
Mhm.
and I was a panelist on the couch, and I don't know,
I
was
do remember that
entertaining.
episode. Yeah, I saw.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it was entertaining enough, I guess, to be invited back, and then was a contributor and was doing that show, a couple times a week, until they kind of went in a new direction, and have been doing stuff with Turning Point ever since. And I can't express enough gratitude to the people over there, Charlie and everybody down the right. I have no business being on their platforms, and yet they let me, and I really really appreciate that. But yeah, man.
It's definitely a humbling experience. I think, like, obviously I mentioned that you're an Islander, and actually one of the conversations that we had prior to was like, I know you wanted to start something in that, right? I think you mentioned something about like an old Polynesian thing going on down
Yeah.
there in Irvine. Yeah, speak on that a little bit.
Well, yeah. So look, there's caucuses all over the place, like
Yes.
inside the House, inside the Senate, inside state legislation, and a lot of the other groups culturally have created their own caucuses. You've got the Latin American caucus, you've got
Right.
the Black caucus, you've got just various groups that all have their groups together, and they talk about issues that matter to that community. And I was invited to an event, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, uh, trying to kind of galvanize that same sort of movement in the Islander population. I'm Samoan, my dad's Samoan, my first name is
Hmm.
Malosi, by the way, too. That's legally my Malosi
Malos.
Tailefi.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Jobob
Right
is
on.
a middle name.
Okay, makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, and so and I kind of was in that room looking around, and it wasn't run well. Like it wasn't. It was a great concept and a great idea, but it wasn't. There's a lot of work that needed to be done there, and I think in a lot of ways, uh, there is a need for some vocalization of Islander culture and Islander people. I think there's a hyper entrepreneurial spirit, among a lot of
100%.
the
Yeah.
Pacific Islander cultures, and that generally translates into more traditional conservative slash freedom oriented values. And so I would love to kind of tap into that somehow. I don't know how I do it quite yet. I'm
Yeah.
still kind of trying to hold on as tight as I can to the roller coaster that I'm on at the moment,
Yeah.
and
Definitely. Yeah.
but yeah, eventually that would be a great thing to kind of figure out, how to coalesce a bunch of people who may not be super politically engaged, which, as a matter of
Mhm.
fact, I know they're not super politically engaged, and kind of get them to understand the importance of taking part and participating in the political landscape as it is right now.
And I agree. And one thing about the Islander community, like in terms of numbers, we're not that much. But in terms of influence that we have in our communities, a
Hmm.
lot of people look at Islanders and we're very outspoken. We're very ingrained in our cultural beliefs and we're very proud people. I mean, look at Dwayne Johnson and all these people who have even a small section of being Islander. They always are very proud of being uh part Islander or full or anything really. So like having that into like the conservative movement, like people in our age who are trying to learn or understand how they can be a part of this movement, right? Because
Hmm.
me thinking about like the culture that comes from the island, it's like we're just conservative by nature. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
and
know,
there's no term for it,
right.
among the communities. There's not like, oh, conservative, leftist, woke. It's just like, no, this is just what you do. Have you been
Yeah.
back? Have you been to Fiji?
Last time I was there was it's been a while, man. Since
Okay.
'08 or '07. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
but
a while.
so you've been there when you were
I was
able to
born there. Yeah,
recognize.
yeah.
Oh, you were born there.
Yeah, I literally just got my citizenship in 2020.
Oh, dude,
Yeah, so I'm
congrats.
Fijian. I'm a dual
That's
citizen, yeah.
awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
cool. So, but so you've been back recently enough to like be able to
Mhm.
it's not like, oh, I was there when I was a baby and then that was it.
No, 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 no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the one of the things I mean that I noticed, I've only been back to Samoa once, and just observing the way that people live is so different, and
Right,
seems to be in a lot of ways, there's a lot of problems, a lot of issues, just like anywhere, but in a lot of ways seems to be more of an ideal, just how people engage and interact within a community. Um, I I have this hilarious picture in my phone. We were in Samoa during the South Pacific Games, which is like all of the island nations coming together to compete
yes,
in
yeah.
various sporting events,
Mhm.
and we saw a couple police officers there that were in lava lavas and
Yeah,
sandals or slippers, and
yeah,
my wife's Italian, and so she
nice.
was looking at that going like, who are they going to stop, right? Like who are they going to stop from committing crimes? And I was like recognizing, the cultural component. I was like, they don't have to stop anybody.
Right.
All they have to do is recognize the person committing the crime and then tell their family, and their mom will sasa them all over the place. And
Yes.
like that's the way I think a lot of things in a more ideal cultural situation here would work better. Like, it would be incredible if more people were afraid of their parents being disappointed of them than they were the law,
Mhm.
because then they wouldn't break the law, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Like, we wouldn't have, big crime issues because, you know, I, I mean, me growing up, I was never afraid of the teacher. I was afraid of my parents finding out what I did in class. And I think that's
Right.
a huge cultural component that it isn't really labeled necessarily in the Islander community, but definitely has those like less government interference undertones to it.
Yeah, no, 100%, and it's funny you mentioned educational because I went to school in Fiji, and
Yeah.
so, like, here, like, the difference is you can't really talk back, right? Like, in the islands, you know, they're crazy. And so this is how different it was. So I grew up in Sacramento when we moved here from the States.
Mhm.
Uh, and then I went back to Fiji for like just a year, stayed there
Okay.
from 2007 to end of 2000, early 2008.
Yeah.
And I noticed that people really respect teachers here. It's like crazy, like,
Yeah.
and then coming back, it's like, wow, America definitely has a lot of good things going for it, but for the most
Mhm.
part, in terms of culturally respect, all these things that really push like a safer, healthier community, it's not really there, and that's the problem today, unfortunately.
Yeah, I remember being in like sixth grade, and there was this kid in my class named Adrian, and the teacher told him to do something, and he like clapped back at her and like talked back, and I was like, "You can do that? Like that's a thing that's allowed?" And no, it wasn't allowed, but that wasn't even in my frame of reference because of the family environment that I grew up in. Of just like
Right,
that
right,
is
right.
so removed from anything that I would even consider doing, that, I wouldn't even think that that's like even an option. And I feel like that's missing a lot among, today's youth. So,
Dude, when I was in class in elementary school, each teacher had a specific stick that they would have next to their like blackboard and just point to it. You're like, you
get
don't
that
want that,
stick.
yeah. Yeah, just
This
look
is
at
in
just look at it.
this is in Fiji?
Yeah, this is Fiji, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna
When I
say
went
it's
to the
probably not in
primary.
Sacramento.
Oh, no, 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 this is in Fiji when I was there for about a year, but, it was crazy, man. But,
Dude,
yeah, I
that's
mean,
awesome.
even r I know, and it's such a huge, like, culture shock, and, like, right now, like I mentioned, I just got my citizenship, right? So,
Yeah.
like, the process of coming here to this country and having to strive and work hard and all these things, like, I think when people don't understand the value of being a citizen, growing up here, and all these wonderful things, they're very disconnected from not having it. Like I know the difference between having it and not having it.
Mhm.
So now I'm just more grateful for the opportunity. So I think for many people here who've grown up in this environment and how the left is kind of just pushing everything on them. It's crazy that they don't really see through what's going on and they're kind of just like accepting it, like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever, and not really fighting back. Um,
Yeah, man. It's so I obviously didn't grow up in Samoa, but I my dad would say the same thing. Just like, hey, like he would tell me stories about being being in Samoa and then they moved to Hawaii and like just being poor, like really,
right.
really, really poor. And his first day of school in California, I think he was in California at like sixth grade. He's like, I didn't have shoes. So my teacher sent me home because I didn't own shoes. Like me and my older brother got kicked out of school because we were just bare feet walking into school, and that was just how like life was. And then obviously as he got older, he started going like, holy cow, there's so much that is available here. It would be a slap in the face to your parents, to your community, to your country
Right.
to take any of this for granted, because there is just like, it is born in a hut on a beach, and now, well, was able to do a lot of things that a lot of people around the world don't do. And I think he recognized and was able to instill in me how not normal this place is. Because if you look at the rest of the world is, a lot of it sucks. Like not like everywhere. Obviously there's other, first world countries that it's, pretty nice to live in, but a majority of the world is way less cool than being a United States of American citizen. So
A hundred
uh
percent.
I hope that's
100%.
not lost on people.
And so, like, with where you are right now, tying it back to your journey, your roller coaster journey, like,
Yeah.
what is your vision for what you want to do? Like, obviously, you mentioned, wanting to come back to the Islander community and being an effect, but as of right now, where you are, like, what do you see in the near future?
Yeah, dude, that's a great question that I ask myself every day, and the answer is I have no idea.
Yeah.
Dude, when I say I'm on a roller coaster ride, like, you know, I'm I'm a little bit. I'm 31, so I'm a little bit older than a lot of the people, especially in the student kind of grassroots effort that Turning Point is, and given that have experienced all of my 20s before I jumped
Mhm.
into this kind of like new career, I kind of think I went into it with a different mindset of kind of like, I don't want to sit here. I don't want to, you know, talk bad about any of the other people that are like commentators and all that sort of stuff. But I notice a lot of them that have kind of grown up in this are kind of like picky about the things that they do and kind of like, oh, I want to do
Right.
this, but I don't want to do that. I am, if I have time, I'm doing it. And that
Mhm.
was like my mindset going in. And to answer your question, I have no idea what's coming next. I
Yeah.
let me tell you. So this is like kind of interesting, I think, a little bit. So we met at what, WR, I can never do the
WRC.
acronyms.
Yeah.
WRC, the Western
Mhm.
Regional Conference, which they asked me to talk, and I tried to do stand up, and it did not work. It I know there's people like, oh no, it was funny. Like, nah, dude, like it didn't work. Um, but the
It was
the
good though. It
only
was good. I'll give you that. It was good.
I appreciate the sentiment, but like it was not awesome. um but
But
so
yeah.
so kind of with the mentality of like jumping through hurdles, right?
Right.
We were at YWLS, the Young Women's Leadership Conference. That was there as a contributor for Turning Point, and there was a speaker that was late for their main headline spot. It was so Matt Walsh, right, was at the height of What is a Woman. Like
What
the
is one? Yeah.
dude was as busy as a human being could possibly be, and was late. He was running late for the event, and I mentioned I did comedy, and but I done like open mics. Like I've been doing open mics for a really long time. I promise this story is going somewhere. But I've been doing open mics for a long time, and I mentioned like, yeah, I do comedy. And so when Matt is late to this event, uh they have 2,500 people in the auditorium just waiting. And so Charlie was like, "Hey man, can you kill 20 minutes or go and entertain them for a decent amount of time?" And I was like, yes, because that's my mindset right now. It's yes, I am willing to do that. I was scared out of my mind. Thankfully, I had some bits in my back pocket, but I had performed them in front of 15 people at a coffee shop open mic, and now we're in 2,500 people here. And thankfully, it went well. And thanks to Charlie for trusting me to do that, but it went well. And so now I'm doing a comedy tour. Like, that wasn't in the calculus like a year ago. But, you know, the hardest thing to do as a comedian, and I know this from trying to have this done, is getting footage of yourself to get out there and market yourself to go do shows. And so after that luck of Matt being late, Charlie having enough faith in me to go do my thing, and then it going well, now I have this gold piece of material on video that I can go market shows to. And 3 months later, now I'm set to do a comedy tour next spring. So to answer your question, I have no idea what's happening next. I'm just saying yes to everything that
That's
I
awesome.
have feasible time for. So yeah,
And
man.
that's crazy because some of those clips went viral. Like I remember seeing
Dude.
the reels. I was like, wow, okay,
So
that's awesome. Yeah.
that Latinx bit,
Yeah.
for those, I put up a Latinx bit on Instagram that was from the Western Regional Conference that it was fine in the room, but that was towards the end of me bombing for 30 minutes. And it has 1 million views. Like, that, to me, that is crazy. Like,
Crazy. Yeah.
why? Like, why are people watching my dumb face make words out of my mouth hole 1 million times? I don't know, man. It's wild, but just taking every opportunity possible.
100%. And it's funny because we talked about, when we actually met each other, we were sitting around, I had all those people talking about like relationships and how to basically make the initiation. And it's funny because like my idea around like talking with all those random people, dude, I just met those people, obviously there. And I think it's like, this is something a lot of people would like to learn about, and something a lot of conservatives don't really, it's almost like taboo. It's kind of like, you'll find them. And so,
How?
yes, exactly.
Yeah. I
Like,
hope you're right, but I don't
live
know.
in California, dude. Like I live, obviously, and then not even just that, in like freaking the Bay Area, bro. Like I'm out here in the bluest of the blue. At least you're in SoCal and you're
Are
married.
you
So
staying there long term?
no, hell
No.
no, dude. Are you kidding me? No, tripping. I have family here, so that's the only reason why I'm here. But
Yeah.
outside of that, bro, in terms of in the future, if I were to stay in California, probably SoCal. But
Yeah,
yeah,
dude. I like it. Yeah, did you guys ever come to a conclusion? So, context for anybody watching this.
yeah,
I was
please.
walking through the lobby and there's a group of people, there's a group of like, I don't know, 12 of you
Yeah, 12,
sitting
10 or 12, yeah.
yeah, sitting in a circle, and I think I came up and made some dumb comment before me and my friend were going to go to the beach, and ended up getting wrapped into a conversation about how relationships work,
Yeah.
especially in this like conservative space that is a turning point event. What did you find the answer?
No, because the thing I wanted to really do, this is my goal,
Yeah.
was to have people voice their opinion because everyone has a perspective,
Hmm.
especially on this topic, right? So I just wanted people to hear what everyone was thinking, not to necessarily come to a specific answer or conclusion, but just to understand each other. Because I think that's a big part of, in terms of our movement and being out there and growing, right? Obviously, we promote family and
Hmm.
growing families and whatnot. So if you're with the wrong person, like there's that old proverb that says, like, if you're with the right person, you can have a lot of your pains or, positives come from, so it's a
Yeah.
huge part of it. But no, I just wanted to listen to everyone. And I think that's something a lot more people will be more inclined to be a part of.
So
But yeah,
it was my understanding, because you had said, "Hey, you should talk about this." So I'd thought about that quite a bit
yes,
afterwards,
yeah.
because I like what I deduced the problem down to is how do you make the initial contact? And look, this is me as a married guy who's been with my wife for like 12 years now. So I am
Mhm.
so far removed from the dating game, I wouldn't even know
Dude,
where to start.
dude, your story, by the way, really funny. I think people would love to hear about
Which
how
one?
you the one where you was it your story? Like you met the one where it's like somebody had a ring in their finger?
So this is okay. So this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So I thought about how this could work in a bit and how to make this not sound
it was
terrible because it
hilarious.
it
Yeah.
sounds bad. It sounds not good when you look at it on its face. What I basically said was in terms of trying to make like an initial contact, like if I were in the dating pool, uh
Mhm.
that's the most difficult thing. Like how do you talk to a girl you're interested in without coming off as weird or putting her off or anything like that. And like I've noticed, and my wife and I talk about this sort of stuff, like I think people of especially women to men feel more comfortable, at least I've noticed, being that I'm a married person and have a ring on. Like there's
Mhm.
no shot. They know there's no shot, so they feel more comfortable. And again, this is all anecdotal, but
We
like
don't
I
support
have
infidelity, guys.
no, that's not see
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It didn't
right.
sound good
Mhm.
there, but like in all reality, like and I think too, like my wife feels the same thing at like work. Like she has friends that are men that she's married, they know there's no like awkward kind of like butting heads it at all because you know it's like this is all this is a why can't I'm blanking on platonic thing, right? And so I was like, that's so how do you create that platonic feeling, you know, without obviously wearing a ring and tricking people because that's not cool either.
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
so what I thought of, and this
Obvious.
is this is where the stand up bit might come in. How do you mimic the feeling of being non-threatening as a dude approaching a woman who you're interested in, but you also don't want to put off? Here's how I think you do it. Crocs. I think I think you wear Crocs because Crocs is not a singles man shoe. If you're wearing Crocs, I think a girl goes, "There's no way this guy's hitting on me. He's wearing Crocs," and then they may open up and have a better conversation with you. I don't know if any of this is
I
true, by the
guess
way.
I guess what Crocs would signify is like comfortable. Like this
Yeah,
guy's comfortable. Like relax, no pressure. I think if
yeah,
that's the message, I mean that's a great point. And if you even want to, yeah, 100% Crocs, or if you're Polynesian or Islander, flip flops.
yeah, dude. I was trying to think of like again being so far removed from the dating game. I was like, how do you mimic that sense of, yeah, this is just like this is not at all threatening, and you know, especially on an because more context. The conversation was more like, how do you meet people at these events? Because like Turning Point events is one of the best places on earth to meet like-minded people, and I don't know if a lot of people know that,
That's yeah.
but you have a limited amount of time to do that. So like how do you do it? And you know, I think if you approach somebody in a comfortable mindset, you're not like in a suit like, "Hello, I'm John Bradshaw and I would like to court you." Like yeah,
If you're
that
applying,
doesn't
yeah, you have
yeah,
an
that
interview.
doesn't work. But if you're
Mhm.
wearing Crocs, I feel like you can create that sense of, "Hey, this guy's just a guy." And if things progress forward from that, congratulations.
I mean, the question would be then like, okay, so you have the Crocs, but you still
Yes.
have to make the approach like women like to be approached, right? So I think in that round table, I guess you could say when we were talking in the lobby, it was like, how do you make that approach?
I don't
Like,
know,
how do
dude.
you break that ice? And so that's the hard part. That's the part where
the guy
it's
the guy that I was hanging out with, John, who I've known for a hot second, and he was just like, just say, "Hi, I'm John."
yes.
Like, I don't know. Does that work? Like, is that a thing? So I don't know, dude. It's if you figure out the answer, let me know. Are you coming to America Fest?
Yes, yes, I'm definitely coming to America
Bro,
Fest for sure.
bring some Crocs. See if it works.
Bro,
I don't know, man. Like maybe
Hey, maybe, bro. That I'm not gonna. Yeah, that might be a good place to try it for sure. Just maybe not when. What do you think? Like when people are watching, like during the event, like conference itself, or like after?
I don't know, man. So the concerts, there's a country concert. So like
Mhm.
if you could like do some like croc boot mash that could draw some attention and get people saying, hey, I love whatever it is that's going on below your knees here. I don't know what that is, but it looks great. And now
Like a
you've
Hawaiian T-shirt.
oh dude, I go Hawaiian shirts all day every day. Well, one of the things that I think is interesting about
Yeah.
the conservative movement, and again, I'm not at all trying to like uh diminish anybody who comes in like suits, but like I think one of the big things that are missing as a component of just freedom oriented thinkers is this like pizzazz feature, and I've found
Mm,
that Hawaiian shirts do that. Like
yeah.
I will wear a suit and a Hawaiian shirt, and I feel like that's a really, you should try that.
Wait. So not the Hawaiian shirt over the suit.
No,
Like
no,
you're
no,
just
no.
like. Oh, okay. I
Like
was like.
it's like the Hawaiian shirt underneath the blazer type of
Oh.
thing. I
Okay.
like I exclusively go to weddings like that. It's I got the Hawaiian shirt. I like got that suit, but the Hawaiian shirt underneath instead of like a regular shirt and tie, because
Sounds fresh. Yeah.
I feel like everybody's trying to fit into this whatever
Hmm.
they think this group mimics or is, and they try to mimic that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. I'm just saying like, hey, you want to stand out, throw some flair in there, and rock and roll. I wore a polo and a bolo tie, which are not like two things that generally go together. Like usually, if you're wearing a bolo, you're wearing a long sleeve button down shirt, not a
Right. Right.
polo.
Right.
And I thought it worked.
That's the funny thing because, like, obviously when you look at the media and how they portray people on the right or conservative, however we want to label it, like they don't think like you or me. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
as this movement continues to progress, is like you're gonna have more voices and different cultures and people like you out there and being an example, and then people will realize, like even right now, like with what they did with uh Herschel, right? Calling people like him, like Uncle Tom and all this stuff. It's like crazy garbage. But
Well,
yeah,
one of the things that I think is interesting about the movement in general, and I sound like just like this big turning point fanboy, and I am in a lot of ways, but that's not the intention. They just are genuinely this good at things. As a consultant, right, I'd gone to CPAC a lot, the
yeah,
Conservative Political Action Conference Committee,
mhm,
whatever, and every single person there is just wearing a suit, uh, all dressed up nice, and they play just kind of generic music as people walk on the stage,
right.
and it whatever. If you go to America Fest, I don't know if you went last year,
I did.
but
It was awesome.
that
Yeah,
was my first big turning point event. And like I'm sitting there watching Charlie walk out like it's a WWE entrance, like sparklers going off, like pyro, all of the like graphic stuff on the screens, the walls, the LED walls are all painted, and I'm
it
like,
was dope.
oh my gosh, this is awesome. And I
Yes.
just feel like that's missing, that creative kind of like f yeah attitude is missing a lot from the conservative movement. I think Turning Point events are doing a really, really good job at making up ground to make being a freedom loving American cool. And that's what I'm really getting at. It's like you can be cool and also not like getting taxed. Like that's just like
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
thing. So like I don't know. I would it, this year you should push the envelope a little bit with some of the outfits. Like unleash your style side, because I know
Hey,
I do with
that's
that.
true. I never even thought of it like that before, and especially now, like everything just seems so generic. And with what Turning Point has done so well, like you just mentioned, like
Yeah.
people are now coming out and being comfortable with whatever the heck they're wearing and still being conservative.
Yeah, dude. I work like not most, but like a good amount of the shows on the Turning Point Live couch. I was wearing like a green jacket and jeans. Like, it was kind of casual, but also, just like, look, we can be colorful and pizzazzy and in your face, and also think that the welfare state is bloated. Like, those aren't two
Yes.
mutually exclusive things. Like, you're allowed to think outside of the box and be creative and dress with a certain amount of pizzazz, and also think that Social Security needs to be reformed. Like, we can do all of these things at one time. It's not like only people who are creative and creative mind in the creative space can like be creative. Like, I would love to see more people kind of break out into their, like, I don't want to say silly side, but maybe that's what it takes.
And talking about the movement, obviously we've had the election going on. It hasn't been the red wave that we've thought it'd be.
No.
What do you think is the disconnect? Like, what happened? This is not what we're
Candidates.
expecting at all.
No, dude, candidates matter.
Yeah.
Look, so I don't want to say I get in trouble about this stuff, but I get pushback a lot from this. So coming out of the consultant world and having run races and all that sort of stuff, I, for better or worse, look at politics as a sport. And even imagine you're looking at who's your football team?
Niners.
Okay, so wow, that must have been a pretty bad several years.
We went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. What are you talking about?
Oh, okay. Did you got the Super Bowl ring, or is that?
Okay. We beat. What are you?
I'm a Seahawks fan, so go Hawks.
Hey, we beat you guys.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
But
okay, so look at this. So as a Niners fan, right? Obviously, you're allowed to root for your team and want your team to win, but it would be stupid of you to genuinely think that Russell Wilson sucks if he was playing for Seattle, right? So the last several years, it would have been dumb to be like, Russell Wilson sucks, and I don't like him as a player, and he sucks. Like, no, he doesn't. Like, that does not help your team win. And what does help your team win is recognizing that Russell Wilson is a good quarterback, and you still have to beat him. Like, that doesn't mean that you want your team to win any less. All it means is that you recognize an obviously true thing, that Russell Wilson is a good quarterback. The same thing I think applies in political situations, at least for me. I can't stand Nancy Pelosi. I can't stand her. She like, all of her policy stuff drives me up the wall. I don't agree with her on really anything. Having said that, I can recognize that she's very, very, very good at what she does. I wish we had more people like Nancy Pelosi on our side in terms of the cutthroat. I don't want to say backstabbing, but she is all of those things from a political standpoint. She's a fantastic fundraiser. She knows how to like maneuver her party in a way that's most advantageous for them. She's very, very good at that sort of stuff. And me saying that Nancy Pelosi sucks doesn't help us win. It's better to recognize the strengths of your opponent than anything else. So, okay, all of that being said, to circle back to the midterm stuff, it doesn't help the conservative movement to prop up candidates that are not nearly as strong as they could be. In Pennsylvania,
oh God, yeah, that was
in Pennsylvania. Well, let's start with this. So, like, let's start in Georgia, right?
Yeah.
People are like, well, Herschel Walker, Herschel Walker. And there's a bunch of people complaining about ballot security and like, okay, fine, whatever. But Brian Kemp is also a Republican. Brian Kemp ran for governor. Brian Kemp got 8% more votes than the Democrat contender, Stacey Abrams. Herschel Walker lost. He didn't lose. He lost the runoff seat by about a point. So what had to happen is a bunch of people looked at their ballots, voted for the Republican Brian Kemp, and didn't vote for Herschel Walker. So you have two candidates from the same party running on the same issues in the same state with the same voters. What happened? Candidate selection. That's what I would say is the problem. The problem is that Herschel Walker is just a weak candidate. And that's what I think the problem was. And in Pennsylvania, you've got a similar situation where the Pennsylvania governor was a Democrat who won by like 13 points, and John Fetterman won by 1 point, which means that John Fetterman was a terrible, terrible candidate
Terrible candidate.
because he like, even just statistically, because he polled so much far lower than his Democrat counterpart, which makes Dr. Oz an even worse candidate to lose
Yeah.
to that guy. So what I'm getting at here is that candidate selection matters, and the people that we put up matters. I personally am a policy over personality guy. Like, I think
100%.
I care about policy. I care about low taxes, less government, border security, Second Amendment rights, pro-life rights. Like, I care about all of those things. I don't care who is the person at the front of it, as long as they
So
can
you're
get the
saying
job done.
in those two examples, it was the person over the policy, the candidate, basically?
Well, we were focused on the personality. Like, Dr. Oz
Right,
is a
right, right, right.
personality. Herschel Walker is a
Yeah,
personality,
personality. Yeah.
and they were endorsed by the biggest personality on the planet,
Right.
and it didn't work out. And so, I don't think, just given the discrepancies between voters in that state who voted Republican for a different seat,
Mhm.
it screams this was a bad candidate. And there's another thing that there's kind of in there, and I've heard this theory floating around, so this is not an original thought, but a lot of ways it seems like Republicans have a conscience when they're voting. There's several Republicans that that are Republicans, that are conservatives, but look at some of the candidates and go, I can't vote for that person. Like, I just can't do it. Whereas Democrats, on the other hand, it would seem that they're like,
Just
no, blue no matter what, blue no matter
yeah.
what. I don't care if he's dead, I'm gonna vote for him, which happened in Pennsylvania. So,
Oh,
yeah, dude.
that's crazy. I mean,
So,
yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, that's what I think happened in the midterms. I think candidate selection mattered, at least in the Senate race. You want to talk about congressional stuff, you can talk about issues, but that's so much more difficult to understand because it really, really depends on the localities and the districts that are running.
100%. And you know, a lot of people were surprised. And I mean, I was surprised. I'll be honest. I mean, we thought this red wave was coming. It didn't, obviously. But you know, there's still a lot more that we can do to kind of change, you know, where the winds are going and how to influence people in the right way. And I think that's a great point, you know, candidates that we have to put up. And so I think with a lot of the policies, that's the next step, is like letting people know, okay, what policies, and going into detail with what they're going to do, which is, I think, the bridging of the gap between voters and the outcome of the elections.
You want to hear my hot take on the midterms and how they affect just the overall
Yeah, go ahead.
political system? Was it the results Republicans wanted? No. However, as I'm looking at it right now, it would appear that Democrats are effed. Like, they are screwed. Reason being is that a lot of your DC insiders were having rumblings about using the results of the red wave midterm election as an excuse to usher Joe Biden out of the picture and decide to move on to somebody else. Now that the Republicans didn't overwhelmingly win, you have Joe Biden saying, look at how great I did. I am fantastic. And now it's a more difficult case for Democrats to make. You need to go, dude. Now, objectively, he needs to go. Like, Democrats think that he needs to go. This is not like a partisan thing. This is like, Democrats are saying he can't win. He cannot win in 2024. And they were going to use the midterm slaughtering to be like, look, all right, you were the head of the party and now you lost all of these seats. We're moving on from you. Next batter up, whoever. And they don't have a clear heir to the Democratic throne. And now that they didn't do as bad as they thought, you've got Joe Biden out there saying, I could do this. And that is not good for Democrats in the long run, I think.
100%. And I mean, who do you think, to end it on this point, or second to last point, who do you think should run, Trump or DeSantis?
I gotta
Who
be
would you
careful.
like to be president? Yeah.
I gotta be careful about this because there's a lot of moving parts involved.
Oh, okay. I totally understand. Yeah.
No, I like, we'll see how things shake out, obviously. I think DeSantis, just if I'm observing this politically speaking, not necessarily my own opinions, I have observed way, way more people now not necessarily getting off the Trump train, but saying, thank you for the judges, thank you for the policy, thank you for having a sterner look at NATO, but it's time to hand the reins over to somebody else. That's what I'm seeing a lot. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think. But the reality seems to be that I think a lot of people, given how poorly the two biggest Trump, Oz and
For
Herschel
sure.
Walker, um, I think a lot of people are realizing it's okay to disagree with Trump, which hasn't been a thing that people have been able to do for a really long time. Like it was kind of, you stoke the base if you go against him in any way, shape, or form. And I think
But
that's
not
going
anymore. Yeah,
away. Yeah, I think
it
that's
is.
going away, and I
I
think
agree.
it's going to be interesting. Ron DeSantis is unbelievably impressive. Like I would love nothing more to see a DeSantis versus Newsom uh, election, just because he would just annihilate Newsom.
Oh my God,
And it's
yes.
not, again, not from a partisan standpoint, really, just from like a Ron DeSantis has all the facts on his side, and also is not a dumb guy. I know Ron DeSantis plays this like kind of populist character, but the dude did his undergrad at Yale, has a Harvard law degree. Like, I don't know, did you know this?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, dude,
Wow.
the guy is smart. Gavin got into Santa Clara because of a baseball scholarship, and that whole thing, whether or
He
not he
went to my
was,
high school. He's an alumni of where I went to high school, and like, yeah, not
yeah,
impressive.
dude. Well, and again, I don't really care about where you go to school, but if we're stacking people up by their resume, like Ron DeSantis is just a better person to make his case than a Gavin is. So I would love to see that. When Gavin was like, "Hey DeSantis, let's debate each other," like clearly trying to like stoke the fire, I was kind of thinking like, well, first of all, this is a political stunt, but also, what happens if Ron says, "Yeah, let's go for it"? I think Gavin poops his pants a little bit and says, "Whoa, hold on, wait, I wasn't do
I
we
wasn't
don't
serious.
actually
Yeah.
have to do this, right?" Because I think Ron would wipe the floor with him.
100%. He murders everybody that always asks him any question. Yeah.
Gavin is a pro though. Like I will say that. Like Gavin is. I've had a couple run-ins with Gavin, and he knows the game. I'm not saying he's good at the game, but he knows the game that's being played,
Yeah.
which some people do, some people don't.
I mean, you saw what he did when he had to apologize for the French Laundry. I mean, he literally said in front of people and told them he made a mistake and just
Mhm.
apologized. And was like, okay, now I'm cool. Now I'll do
Yeah,
whatever the hell I want.
yeah,
Like,
dude. Yeah,
uh,
he knows the game, and
yeah,
he knew that people weren't actually going to give much of a crap about that. And
right,
man,
right.
turns out he was right. I don't agree with him, but that's just the way it shook out.
The way the cookie crumbles. But to end it on this point, what are the last remarks or things that you want to say to people or about yourself or anything that you're doing?
You know, I think there's a lot of more of this, and we talked about it like this creative fervor within the freedom loving movement. I think Turning Point is on the cutting edge of these big events. Like
That's
nobody
true.
else is nobody else is doing this sort of stuff. Daily Wire's putting out movies and is in this creative space as well, which is just it's awesome to see. I think there's some people making music that are really, really talented that
Talented.
aren't.
Yeah. If they weren't
Yeah.
in the conservative movement, you'd think they'd be like playing with like mainstream. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
But
What's his face? Tom McDonald. I know he's kind of like a conservative person now, but like the dude is just a freedom liberty guy, and he's killing it. And so what I think my main thing is like, don't be afraid if you're on the artist side and you're not necessarily engaged politically. Don't be afraid to speak your mind and go against the grain, because I don't think you know 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think that would have been super damaging to your career.
mhm.
Now, I think there's enough attention to the fact that this is not like all that bad. Like Katy Perry voted for Republican for mayor. I know that he's technically not a Republican. He re-registers as a Democrat. But this guy Rick Caruso, who's running for LA mayor,
Yeah,
who's ahead in the polls, I think right now, the dude is a conservative. And the bottom line here is, if you're on the artist side, don't be afraid to come out pro freedom, because that's never a bad argument. And if you're on the pro freedom side, I would say let your creative juices just flow. Like I,
hundred
I was
percent.
joking, I was joking with a friend the other day. I was just like, what would happen if Tucker Carlson put out a rap album? Like, I think it would go to number one like immediately, because people were like, what is this? Like, what is happening right now? Like, I think he should do it. I don't know about a rap album, but like, there's no rules.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. There are
yeah,
no rules. Like, I have a political talk show, doing the stand-up comedy tour thing. My wife and I play music at church, and like
it's awesome.
there's no like box that you have to be in anymore, because that used to be the case. Like, if you were a political commentator, you were a serious political arbiter,
Yeah,
and da, rah, 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 rah. Like, that's just not the case anymore. Everybody can do anything, so go for it.
awesome. Thank you so much for that, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your
Yeah,
day. I know
dude.
you're super busy to do this
Yeah.
with me, and I will definitely see you
I
there.
was gonna say, I'll see you at
Yeah,
America
go ahead.
Fest. Do you have your like your flight all set up and everything already?
I
Are you
gotta get that,
driving
but I
it?
would have like, huh?
Are you
I
driving
think I
it?
am. I'm thinking about carpooling. So I did it
No,
last time.
okay. That's a
Yeah, so
long
it was fun. Yeah,
that's a drive. Yeah, dude, you'll have to hit me up. We're I part of at those events, I'm either there are pockets of the day where I am slammed. Like, you go here, you go here, you go here, you go to this, and then there's like other pockets of the day like I feel like I should be doing something. I'm just sitting here. Uh, what are we doing? So yeah, hit me up and
exactly.
we'll kick
I
it.
will definitely. We should link up, man. I appreciate it, and I will and tune in next time, y'all. I appreciate you guys for watching. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.